Minister Cisse, let's bring you in here with a West African voice. Côte d'Ivoire certainly experienced a tough time for most of a decade, 2000 to 2011, with 0% growth as a result of political instability. Come 2011, and the situation changed. You are now looking at strong growth, 8 to 9%, obviously off a low base. But Côte d'Ivoire, and Abidjan particularly, is a focal point for investors looking for growth in West Africa. What financing models are pervasive and working for the Côte d'Ivoire scenario?
Thanks for the question. Thanks for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to be here. I mean, it's always good to have Francophone countries in this kind of forums because most of the time you're not invited. That being said, since, as you mentioned, since 2011, we have a new president, President Ouattara. So when he came, the first thing that we did was to put together a development plan. So we put a $20 billion development plan that was supposed to be financed both by the private sector and the public sector. We did a lot on the public side. We moved from spending around 15% of the budget in 2010 in infrastructure to something close to a third of the budget in investment. So there was a big change in the structure of the budget to focus on investment to create growth. But we can't do it all by our own. So we need the private sector to come. How do we do that? So we did a lot of different things. One thing was basically to start marketing the country, making sure that people know about Côte d'Ivoire, people know about our growth story. And we did quite well over the past years. We're not at the level of Rwanda because our ranking in the Doing Business report is not there yet, but we gained 30 seats in 2 years. And for 2 years in a row, we've been among the top 10 reformers in the world. And this is something we really want to continue because if we really want to attract investors, we need to make sure that the business environment is good enough for people to come. And then there's political risk. And that's something people were looking at. And the 2015 election was a good signal to the investors and to the world by saying everything is fine, everything is back to normal. Now, as financing is concerned, particularly private financing, we looking at PPPs. We did a couple of transactions. We did one on the third bridge of Abidjan, which is a toll bridge that was put together and that's been open since 2014. There is Azito, which is another deal where IFC was actually involved, whereby we look at sharing the risk. But there's still challenges that we need to overcome. One big challenge is human resource, because if you want deal to get done, you need to have good human resources. You need to have good legal framework. And you also need to have projects that are mature enough and well-structured. And how do you do that? So something that we decided to do was to put in the budget every year at least $40 to $50 million in order to finance feasibility studies, to have projects that are actually bankable for the future. So these are basically the different steps that we're putting on. But the world is changing. There's big competition. We have to make sure that we're on top when investors look at Africa.
Is it true that you can open a business in 24 hours in Abidjan?
Yes, you can do it in 24 hours, and we actually reduced the creation cost of companies by more than 70%.
Minister Cisse.
I'll go in the same direction. We basically need to know what the challenges are. Financing is one of the challenges. It's really difficult to get access to concessional financing. So we need to make sure that the private sector comes in. For that to happen, we need political stability, good governance, good business environments, and we also need to make sure that we have the adequate human resources to speak about what was earlier mentioned about education. Education is key. It's a long-term investment, but you basically need to have it. If you don't have it, your project won't be structured enough, and no one will come to look at it. And we also need early-stage financing. Either it's coming from donors or coming straight from the government. In Côte d'Ivoire, that's basically what we do.
Is that to drive the SME environment?
Drive SMEs and drive even projects. And it's really key and really important to have that. regional integration is important, value-added product is also important, but financing is key. And it's actually the thing that we want to fix in the near term.
Doing business in Africa, you can't afford to be without Africa Investor.